One, two, three, four. Good evening.
Yeah, well, that's what you
Well, there's that, there's that space in parking lot. And then there's been
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to South San Francisco. Oyster Point Strategic Business Plan process. Coming up now for Oyster Point Marina. This is our initial meeting here in South San Francisco. There will be others as part of the ongoing community engagement process involving Oyster Point older tenants and others in the community here. I'm Peter Grinnell, the General Manager of the San Mateo County Harbor District. I'd like to bring to your attention South San Francisco Mayor Carol Matsumoto is with us this evening. And Harbor Commissioners Jim Tucker and Sabrina Brennan are here And what we have in store for you, I'll get to in just a minute. For those of you who have not signed in, we would much appreciate you signing in on the back table. The primary reason is so that we can keep in touch with you and let you know what's going on and when other meetings are coming and other information is available. What we have in store for you tonight is a simple introduction to the strategic business plan process. The Harbor District has embarked on this process a few months ago, and it covers the entire Harbor District, which includes both Oyster Point Marina Park here in South City and Pillar Point Harbor over in Half Moon Bay. And the intent of the business plan is to provide a real blueprint and chart a direction for the Harbor District over the next several years in terms of everything from facilities improvements to finding new opportunities for enhancing revenues and environmentally sound development as appropriate at either or both of the two harbors, and to essentially reestablish and reaffirm the Harbor District's position as a functioning public asset for the county of San Mateo and its citizens. I will just say that the Harbor District was created by the County Board of Supervisors in 1933 with county-wide jurisdiction. They had vision back then, even though they saw initially a need to start building a new harbor at Redwood City. They made the jurisdiction coterminous with the county boundaries, and the point that I want to raise here is that this enables the Harbor District to be an asset to the entire county and its citizens, and it enabled the Harbor District, in fact, to respond to South San Francisco's request to come and operate Oyster Point Marina back in 1977. And in fact, the Harbor District, under a joint powers agreement with the city, does operate Oyster Point Marina now for the city. And so there's a partnership which our consultants will speak more of shortly. I don't plan to say much more here. I will make an offer to the mayor if she wishes to say a few words at any time, or not, as the case may be. And if not at this point, I suggest we move on with the program. Henry Pontarelli of Lisa Weiss Consultants, the project manager for this business plan preparation, will now join me up here, and he will make a brief presentation to you all about what this strategic business plan really means, what they're doing, what they will be doing. And then there will be time for questions and answers, and we look forward to further opportunities as the process goes on. I should give you an example for Pillar Point, which had their initial meeting a couple of months ago. We will be having a second workshop-style gathering in a couple of weeks to move the process along there. And we can foresee that happening with the Oyster Point thing. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Henry Pontarelli. For those of you who didn't pick up an outline of the process and the program tonight, they are in the back table. And so, Henry, if you will.
Thank you, Peter. Sure. Thank you. It's really great to be here tonight. I also wanted to point out that there's a couple harbor commissioners with us. Jim Tucker and Sabrina Brennan are in the audience, so really pleased to have them here this evening. So, as Peter said, my name is Henry Pontarelli. I'm the owner and one of the owners and co-founders of Lisa Wise Consulting. We're a land use and planning and economics firm. We're based in San Luis Obispo. We have an office in San Francisco. We consider this a target project for us. This is the kind of project that we developed our firm to address. We're focused on creating strategies and looking at economics and land use in coastal communities in California. We've done so in ports and harbor districts and communities in San Diego, Long Beach, Los Angeles, Malibu, Port San Luis, Morro Bay, Moss Landing, Monterey, and Fort Bragg. And we're in our 4th year of conducting economic assessments for NOAA in the California, Washington, Oregon region. I also like to introduce Brian Harrington from our office. He's young and smart and strong, and he's going to be doing a lot of the, already is doing a lot of the heavy lifting on the project. So we look forward to tonight. We would like to introduce the project, as Peter said, and then answer questions. We kind of truncated the presentation this evening to put the focus on the discussion, Q&A, where we can answer specific questions on the project, as well as start to gather the community's top priority issues and what's working well, what might not be working well, and how we take advantage of the resources that we've got in Oyster Point Park and Marina. So in terms of the agenda tonight, you know, the goal is to make this personal introduction. It's like the habeas corpus, show me the body. Brian and I are here to present the project, provide an overview. We've got some maps of the study area. We'd like to discuss our strategy for community engagement, which is going to be you're going to hear that term come up a lot tonight. Timelines, next steps, and then, of course, as we indicated, the question and answer period. So we brought a world-class team to the project. My firm is focused on, like I said, land use planning, policy, and economics, and waterfront communities. We have a very capable team of, we have an accountant, we have 2 MBAs, we have a handful of land use planners, we have a PhD in cultural anthropology who's dedicated her thesis work and her postdoctoral work on working in waterfront communities. She was down in post-Katrina New Orleans working with communities down there and has done significant work on our coast as well. I'm the project manager. The buck stops with me. I'm responsible for all the rights and wrongs on the project. Again, Brian is already helping us with document management research, just kind of keeping track of things for us. We've collected a fair amount of data. We've conducted over 40 interviews with commercial fishermen down in Pillar Point Harbor already, and we've collected data from Fish and Wildlife on landings and earnings and commercial fishing activity back to 1980. And Brian's compiling that. We're going to start analyzing that data as well. Moffitt Nickel is responsible for marine structural engineering on the project. They are one of the nation's top marine structural engineering firms. They have a $700 million project with the Navy in Guam, so they're very capable. They're familiar with the district. They're currently conducting a facility condition survey in Pillar Point Harbor and Oyster Point Marina. They were also on the design and engineering team for the ferry terminal in Oyster Point Marina. And they'll be responsible for the major components of the capital facility plan and strategies as they pertain to over-the-water structures and civil engineering. We're also one of their principals, Dilip Tripathi, is a national expert in sea level rise, and he'll be advising the team on strategies for adapting to sea level rise. Nelson Nygaard is one of the region's top, maybe the nation's top, most innovative transportation planning firms. They're also the lead firm on the WETA Short-Range Transit Plan, the Water Emergency Transportation Authority, or the ferry. So they'll be advising us on parking and circulation issues, vehicular and pedestrian, as well as advising us on opportunities surrounding the ferry terminal. And we've worked with Moffitt Nickel in San Diego and Fort Bragg, and we've worked with Nelson Nygaard. Our firm has worked with Nelson Nygaard in Merced, Richmond, Soledad, Oceano, and San Luis Obispo County. So we have a very strong working relationship with both of these firms. Tenera Environmental is on our team. We're very pleased to have them on the team. They're based in San Luis Obispo. They're a team of marine biologists and scientists dedicated to understanding man's impacts on the marine ecosystem and developing best practices to mitigate for those impacts, and as well as setting the stage for more resiliency and to raise awareness in the community. So they've got a good resume that includes the visitor impact study for the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve for the San Mateo County Parks and Recreational District. They're responsible for looking at indigenous and non-native species in the harbor, water quality, restoration opportunities, and kind of linking any recommendations we make to movement of physical infrastructure, or expansion or change in physical infrastructure with ways to best address that, to favor natives and not favor non-natives amongst other approaches. So, and we've worked with them as far back in 2007, 2008, in Morro Bay with the Nature Conservancy, developing strategies for using cameras on vessels as a lower cost alternative to certain fishermen have to carry human observers on their boat, and it's very expensive, particularly for smaller vessels. So we've worked with Tenera on projects like that, and we also served on the San Luis Obispo Science and Ecosystem Alliance with them, so we know Tenera as well. We've got a very, very strong team. Next slide. The project was, in terms of I think Peter talked about this a little bit, in terms of the structure of the project, we have Lisa Wise Consulting has a contract with the Harbor District. The project was initiated by the Harbor District with a direction from the Board of Harbor Commissioners and support and urging from the community. So it's a community project, and there was a request, it was a public process. It was a request for a proposal released in October of 2013. Our firm was selected, and the project kicked off in late April, early May this year. So the Harbor District is the client. We have a contract with them, and the team members have a contract with Lisa Wise Consulting. All communication with the Harbor District and the leaders of the project goes through us. All work product that comes in from the subconsultants will come to us for edit and review and distribution to the appropriate sources or appropriate parties. So I think Peter talked about the joint powers agreement, or the relationship, the partnership between Oyster Point Marina and the county, the San Mateo County Harbor District. At the sake of being repetitious, in 1977, the City of South San Francisco requested the district assume operational control over the marina through this joint powers agreement. And I think the thrust of that, or the focus was was to complete the construction of the 600 berth recreational marina. Full build out was accomplished in the 1980s, and the joint power agreement still stands. It's set to expire in 2026. So that's kind of an overview in the relationship. In terms of the project, there have been many engineering, economic, and other kind of studies that have gone on in both harbors, in both areas, both study areas. We're certainly going to consider those. We're looking at financial conditions, physical facilities, and sea level rise, as well as market opportunities, environmental concerns, commercial fishing, which is certainly not an issue in Oyster Point Harbor, but it is in Pillar Point Harbor, where in the last 24 years, commercial fishermen have brought in over $150 million in landings at the dock. So we're very much going to rely on the community to guide us on where we should spend our resources and what are the things that are most important. And from that input and from that research, we'll develop our recommendations. Each recommendation we make will carry with it also a list of potential funding sources. So we don't intend to make recommendations without providing some direction as to how that would be paid for. We could try to avoid unfunded mandates or unfunded recommendation. So in terms of the approach, again, the goal or the objective on the project is to establish a baseline to understand where we are from an environmental perspective. For example, what is the presence of indigenous or invasive species? What are restoration opportunities? What are outreach opportunities? And we're also going to be looking at water quality. Tenero will be looking at that, and we'll be working closely with them to integrate that information into the findings and have that influence our recommendations. We look at economic opportunities as well, employment trends in harbor and the marine industry, looking at the market there and where Pillar Point Marina or Oyster Point Marina and Pillar Point Harbor might gain advantage there. So we intend to kind of take an overall comprehensive look at that industry and make recommendations. And this is all going to be kind of balanced on these social performance measures. We're going to rely very heavily on the community to give us their perspective and provide their vision and what their needs are. Like I said, we've already conducted about 40 interviews with commercial fishermen in Pillar Point over 5 days, and we intend to engage in similar kind of discussions with the Harbor District staff and city staff in South San Francisco. But as we spoke with the earlier, we're in the process of figuring out what the best approach is going to be here in South San Francisco. There's a couple maps of the study area. That the highlighted area is the study area, the area we're responsible for. The sandy colored boxes are ground leases, and the leaseholders and the business owners in Oyster Point Marina, Oyster Point Park are going to be a target of our community engagement to figure out what their needs are, get their perspective, kind of an insider's perspective on what's working well in the Harbor District, what's working well there, and what's not. This is the study area for Pillar Point Harbor, the shaded area. So in terms of geographics, those are our the two areas that are geographically where we'll be addressing on the project. Community engagement, like I said, we're gonna hear a lot of this tonight. We believe that a successful project will be driven by the community, and we're relying on the community to inform us on the top priority issues, what works well, what doesn't, and what we need to do to make the Harbor District and Oyster Point Marina and Park stronger. So we have a public meeting like this we're holding today. We've had one meeting in Pillar Point Harbor. We're going to have another one on October 14th. It's going to be more workshop style. We have 3 presentations in front of the Board of Harbor Commissioners. Those are public meetings. And we're going to be focusing on interviews with Harbor District staff and city staff, as well as business owners and leaseholders. So we also have spent 5 or 6 days down in Pillar Point Harbor to see what the flow is, how pedestrians use the facility, how business people use the facility. So we intend to augment our research with site visits as well to understand from a ground level how things are working or not. So like I said, the 14th, we've got a workshop. We're in the process of conducting one-on-one interviews, and that'll probably continue through October and likely into November, although we'll be collecting data throughout the process. We'll probably have a public meeting, another public meeting here in Oyster Point Marina, as well as another meeting in Pillar Point, but those dates are likely in November and April, but we'll make announcements on those as the dates are confirmed. And that, we intend to have a final product in front of the Board of Harbor Commissioners in June of 2015. So in terms of deliverables, we have the infrastructure and facilities assessment. We're working very closely right now with Moffitt Nickel to understand the present conditions on the marine infrastructure and civil infrastructure in the 2 study areas. We're working with Nelson Nygaard to understand what the baselines are on traffic and circulation and parking, as well as working with Tenera to understand baselines on the biological or environmental issues. And we hope to have that lined up in October, probably the end of October. The Sustainable Fisheries Business Plan and Financial Conditions Assessment is slated for getting a draft document to the Harbor District in November. We have the Capital Facility Plan, sea level rise adaptations, which have a timeline of December or January, or in the first of the year, to get draft documents to the Harbor District on those particular subjects. And then, the hope is to have a draft document, a draft strategic business plan ready in March of 2015, so we can start going through the review and edit process and have a final document by June of 2015. So we'd like to take the rest of the time allotted, whatever time is necessary, to answer questions and start to gather data. Brian and I will be taking notes and be happy to answer questions. Certainly we're taking data here, we're taking information here tonight. We've already, Scott and Peter have been working closely with the leadership in South San Francisco, and we understand that generating more awareness of Oyster Point Marina Park is a top issue, as well as looking for other revenue generating opportunities, like the kite flying contest, or as well as coming up with some strategies for sea level rise. I mean, we've already done some data gathering in the community, but I'd like to take that a step further tonight. And I don't think we have a mic, so I guess people stand up, speak up, and Be happy to open the floor to questions.
What happened, and maybe Peter can answer this, what happened with the Shorenstein SKS project that there was a whole development plan for it? And is it just been put on the back burner, or how is this plan going to affect that plan?
Maybe we could let somebody
We have
from the city answer.
Jim Steele is our finance director, and I'd like to have.
Yes, yeah, please step forward, yeah. Yeah, we have city representation here, and in response, I'll first have them comment, and if needed, I'll say something. Introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Jim Steele. I'm the City of South San Francisco's finance director, and the question was, what's happening with the SKS Shorenstein development?
There was a redevelopment plan.
Yes, and that's a private development, so that's dependent on the developer getting financing and determining that what they want to build there both can get financing and is profitable to investors. So that's not something that either the city or the harbor district control. Prior to the redevelopment agencies being dissolved by the state of California, we started setting redevelopment dollars aside in a trust fund to use to help pay for public infrastructure if that Shorenstein project does go forward. And it's dependent on them finding the financing with developers. Our city manager is in regular discussions with them just to keep up with where they're at.
I have a question about the same thing.
I'll just have one more comment to back up what Mr. Steele said. Given what you've just heard, what the Harbor District will be doing will be working closely with city staff and council as needed to sort out what the Harbor District's future role will be at Oyster Point relative to possible developments. One of the things that is a top priority for the Harbor Commission is to enhance and augment and diversify our sources of revenue, and in particular for Oyster Point, to try to work with the city to really make Oyster Point Marina Park a destination that the public will really enjoy and appreciate. And so how we work those two themes out in the context of what you just heard from Mr. Steele remains to be seen, but that will be an integral part of this strategic plan process. Yeah.
So I'm just trying to understand where that puts the district, and I'm speaking as a member of the public right now, curious, and I've been curious for a while, if, I feel like I'm not, I think we should speak up here because there's a camera here. So I would encourage all the public members to speak up here. It feels like Oyster Point Marina has been sort of on hold for a number of years, waiting for the SKS Shorenstein project to move forward. And I don't know that much about the project, but it appears that they're pretty serious about it, because it's my understanding that they purchased property that is close by and own some office buildings. And I would just love a more full description of what's planned for the area, because I guess what I'm trying to wrap my head around is, does it make sense to put money into improvements like, for example, since the land at Oyster Point is sinking and the sea level is rising and there needs to be fill added in order to do any significant development improvements, does it make sense to just hold off, which it seems to be that, let me explain better. It seems that that's what's been happening. Does it make sense to continue to hold off on doing anything while South San Francisco is waiting for Shorenstein and SKS to move forward with their project? I'm very confused on this topic, and I'm wondering if the city could help clarify that. Thank you.
Let me make sure I understand your question.
Okay.
while everyone is waiting for the Shorenstein development to either take off or not take off, are you wondering whether there's any city plans to do any improvements at the site beforehand?
If things are just kind of in a holding pattern, I mean, the Shorenstein SKS project's been on hold for how many years now?
4 years. It's not that it's on hold, it's that they have an interest in the site and they're looking for investors.
Financing.
And at a certain point, it either will or won't pencil out as far as financing. What they're intending to build there, if their full plan goes forward, is a biotech campus with, the city has been actively involved in getting some public open space, some public recreational areas that will tie in nicely with the Bay Trail. But the focus of Shorenstein's development is for a biotech campus. And that's the part that unless that happens, the public infrastructure will not happen by itself. The city doesn't have funds to invest in on its own in making that kind of infrastructure improvements.
And when you say infrastructure improvements, could you tell us a little bit about what those might be?
I can tell you what's envisioned in the Shorenstein development, if that goes forward, are things like tie-ins to the Bay Trail, a park-type facility that the public could use adjacent to the bay. The public infrastructure would be any streets, sewer lines, traffic lights that would be needed to foster the development. That was the source of the money the redevelopment agency set aside prior to the redevelopment agency being dissolved.
What about the concerns about the flooding that happens there and the issues with sea level rise? Is there money that's being set aside to raise up the, the height of the land there where you've got sea level rise inundation issues?
I can't answer that specifically. What I do know is, obviously, if Shorenstein development does go through, because it pencils out economically for the developers, part of the public infrastructure dollars, if there is indeed an issue with seawater rise and needing additional landfill, that would have to come out in the environmental review process, and that would be part of the dollars the city, the redevelopment agency has already set aside. I'm not familiar with the specifics of the whatever land needs would be.
And how many more years do you think it might take before we know whether or not the project will happen?
It's dependent on it, whether it's economically viable and whether they can get investors. So there's no prediction over that. If land values all of a sudden take off by 50% in the next 6 months, it could happen soon.
Quickly.
But that's not something that one can predict.
I see, thank you.
It seems like things are moving positively, though, due to the land values overall in the Bay Area.
So it's definitely not something that South City is giving up on. It looks like
No.
it could potentially happen.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, did you have?
By the same token, we still, through the JPA, own other lands. We didn't sell everything to Shorenstein. We are excited on making, and it's a commitment on council, to make Oyster Point a destination where we want to partner with the Harbor District on projects we can go through. We also have, I think there's a review date of 2017, I think we have with Shorenstein. I don't know exactly how it's delineating, but that's a private, and I'm not quite sure, I think it's 2017. But what we're looking to partner with the Harbor District is the land by the ferry terminal and other properties, which we own, which was not included in the agreement with Shorenstein and SKS. There's a lot of potential out there, and we're anxious to work with them, especially because of the Bay Trail. And we have our own funds in which we can partner with it. We're not dependent on our agreement. There's separate agreements.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe that, any other questions?
Hi, Shirley Lau, representing the Oyster Point Dragon boating
cool.
sport. You mentioned about there's funding sources. Can you give me examples, some of the, where you're going to get the funding, and is there a target for the funding, and how you allocate the funding?
Yeah, well, I think what we were what I was referring to for the plan is we're going to be doing research, reaching out to the public, gathering data, and then which will culminate in recommendations. The recommendations will carry, we'll research potential funding sources for what the recommendations might be. For example, the state coastal conservancy might be able to provide funding to entitle a project that is aimed at public good, as they have done in Port St. Louis. There's a 30-acre property there that they're going to make a overnight visitor serving, 10 cabins, and so that the coastal conservancies kind of stepped up and provided the money for the entitlement. There's CDBG grants. There's National Fish and Wildlife Foundation grants. So I think for the dragon boat community or this kind of recreational boating competition, competitive boating, we'd have to really sit down and maybe even sit down with you guys to understand, to get a better understanding. And we have really smart people that can help with research, and that's the kind of approach that we would take.
Do you have a target on how much you need to hit to fund this project?
Well, that would depend on the recommendations, with, how that kind of pencils out in the end. I hope to see projects, I would hope to see a diversity of projects ranging everything from everything that very small and would just take some community input to, capital projects like we engaged in. In San Diego, we did a economic revitalization plan for 2 facilities down there similar to this project, and one of the top priorities was rebuilding one of the piers, and we helped the community raise money with the help of the Coastal Conservancy and the port to put $400,000 together to rebuild the pier. So. I hope it's everything from something very, very small to something very big. We're going to have to see when we get further down the road. Did you sign in? Okay, cool. Did you put your affiliation down?
Yeah, if I could just add to that regarding potential sources. Again, as you've heard, we won't know how much we will need. That's a major purpose of this entire strategic planning process, is to determine what needs to be done when and how much it might cost. In addition to grant sources, which we have used in the past on a number of occasions, there are also what you can call cost shares, where we will partner with another agency. For example, at Oyster Point, the Army Corps of Engineers recently completed a project to open up the mouth of the breakwater to make it easier and safer for the ferry boats to come in. We at the Harbor District, with the city, provided a local sponsor share. So there was a cost share. So that's another mechanism for finance. A third one would be just new private sector money coming in. What we can foresee coming up is the former Oyster Point bait and tackle shop, which closed down some time ago. We will be issuing a public notice seeking bids for a new lessee to take that over. That'll be a few months as a process we have to go through. And we want to make sure that the new lease terms are up to standard. The civil grand jury made a point of saying, be sure to make sure that your leases are at current rates, and the district is getting what it should be getting. And so we'll be doing that. And then once we've got that figured out, we will then be seeking bids to get a new lessee who will then open up business and start generating new revenue again. So that's yet another source.
I think this is supposed to be the time for the people to ask questions or talk.
I know, I'm answering her question. Those are the kinds of things that we will be doing, and that's, as I say, a major purpose of this whole exercise.
Thank you.
Before the meeting started, I was talking with this couple here about some concerns they had about transit, and I'm wondering if maybe they could share those.
Yeah, I'm Ken Shuford. I'm a tenant at the marina. We've been there nearly 7 years now. There are several older people out there who don't have transportation, and it's a 1-mile walk to to the nearest bus. There is no transportation out there for anybody. They either have to call a taxi or walk. The buses that come out to the ferry terminal won't deal with the tenants. They're there for Genentech people.
Right,
They won't even talk to you.
okay.
There are problems with paving out there. People are wondering if any of this plan is going to include upgrades and repaving, fixing the parking lots and roads.
Okay.
There's a parking lot that has been there the entire time of this marina. Everything around it is paved. They just paved right next to it where the ferry terminal went in. This thing is still gravel, and all winter long is mud.
Okay.
The West Basin, there's big potholes in the road down there. You know, is any of this in the plan?
Yeah, that's, I mean, our intent is to gather, figure out what the priorities are, and then
Okay.
kind of pound on those. And
Yeah.
we're hoping that the community provide this, and maybe there's some sort of leverage. I don't want to speak prematurely, but there's some sort of leverage, and that a project like this can bring between the relationship or among the relationship with the Genentech, the tenants, and the city to motivate them perhaps to expand their attention. I don't want to speak prematurely, but yeah, this is exactly what we're looking for.
Well, I've discussed some of these things with the harbor master himself
Okay.
on different occasions, so he's aware of it.
Okay.
I don't know how much of it he's addressed with the harbor commissioners, but there has been ongoing dialogue way before he came in, and this stuff has just gone nowhere.
Maybe we can bring some of this stuff together and publish it and
Yeah.
give it a little bit more air.
There's also a laundry facility they started putting in. There's no laundry facilities out there, and it just came to a screeching halt. We were told it was going to be put in. They went down and cleared out a room for it and it stopped.
Okay.
So, you know.
Did you sign in? Did you?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Exactly what we're looking for tonight. Any more of that kind of rich stuff?
But in regards to some of these reports that you're saying that they're working on, that the facilities report and the environment reports, are those going to be released prior to the final June report, or are they going to be held on to until we get to that final stage?
No, so there'll be a draft report, and the draft report will be brought to the Board of Harbor Commissioners, and they will comment on and give us review and edits, and there'll probably be a series of edits and reviews and edits.
But until that final, basically the first draft of that final report, none of those individual reports are going to be released?
No, there will be some releases. For example, the Facilities Condition Survey was begun separately before the strategic business plan process proceeded. And the reason was that Facilities Condition Survey is the latest of other ones that we have done periodically in the past. A lot of jurisdictions do this routinely, periodically, to see what is the state of the infrastructure and all the facilities and what needs to be done when. And so we have a draft that is just being finalized that can and will be made public soon, and then bodily incorporated as base material for the strategic business plan. So that's an example of how that kind of stuff can happen. I can mention one more, which I think is important enough to say, and I'll try to be as brief as possible. The strategic business plan team is finishing up a draft update to a business plan that was prepared by the Harbor District in 2002 at the direction of the then Department of Boating and Waterways. And Boating and Waterways wanted a plan to show how the Harbor District would be able to retire its debt. Oyster Point Marina and Pillar Point Harbor, for those who are not aware, were built with development funds loaned to the Harbor District by the state, and we have to pay that off. We have been steadily and routinely paying that off annually, and the updated report that will go to Boating and Waterways, which is now a division of Parks Department, will first come to the Harbor Commission in public. The Harbor Commission will eventually approve a final to be sent on to Boating and Waterways, and that will show what we already know, which is that we will be retiring the remaining $5.8 million debt by 2018, 1 year early. So that's a second kind of thing that works.
Are they looking into like bike rentals and kayak and paddleboard facility out there?
Could you repeat the question? Sorry.
Like bike rental place out there in Oyster Point with kayaks and paddleboards and things kind of similar to what they have at Pillar Point?
That's, yeah.
How does I think there's a lot of people here with a lot of great ideas, and how do people give you input on what they would like to see out there? How does the community, that's the only part I think I'm confused on, is if you
Right.
have an idea, if you have something that you, a club, you know, something like that, whatever, that you'd like to see
Yeah.
be incorporated. You know,
So we've spoken with the Harbor District, and that's one of the reasons we're here tonight, and, you know, going to be talking with the mayor as well. Apparently, a tenants meeting could be held in Oyster Point Marina Park, where we could gather people and do a similar kind of workshop-style event where we're gathering data and then reaffirming what are the top priorities. So I think that's on the slate. I mean, what do you think about
I
that?
think it's a great idea if you just had a session
Okay.
where people could give input on what they'd like to see. Obviously, some of it you could possibly put in, but, you know, whittling it down to something.
That's
Yeah.
the prioritization is a key part of this. Gather and then prioritize and reprioritize, and then, you know, we'll know where to.
Yeah, if I can
Punch the
comment,
hardest.
we have had periodic tenants meetings over at Oyster Point, and I think after tonight, given your comment, which rings a bell with us, I think it would be time to have another tenants meeting, which would be an opportunity. But you don't have to wait for that. You can always contact either Harbor Master Grindy or me, and tell us what's on your mind, what the ideas are, and we will absolutely incorporate them as needed. And again, some of the ideas may not need to wait for the completion of the business plan process. On the other hand, maybe they do. We'll have to see what it is. But I'll give you my card before we leave so you can do that.
Just one more thing. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for this meeting, and with the support of the Drake Marine, the Yacht Club, and the Harbor Master and the Harbor District, our team was able to call Oyster Point our home for the last 2 years, and it has been fun. So I want to ask, would something like aquatic center be something that you would be interested? And if so, well, how do you handle like traffics and parkings and more foot traffic? How does that impact the residents that is there? So those are some of the questions I would, you know, we'd like to see more traffic, but we also want to make sure that parking and foot traffic does not have big impact on the people that is living there.
So those are that's a great comment. Those are the things that we'll rely on our team members. Like if we're going to make a recommendation to place something there that's going to generate more traffic or more need for power, more need for fresh water, when we make those recommendations, we'll look at all those costs and potential impacts.
But
So,
is that something you would be interested in, or?
yeah, it's on the list. It's on the list. That's the best. That's the.
Could you describe what an aquatic center means to you so we understand?
Sure. So this is all just, I'm throwing it out on the table. What Kim was saying, the kayak, the dragon boat, and paddleboard, water jet, you know, all these are water sport.
Right.
And it generate revenue because people that comes to play, you know, we can either charge a fee or charge storage. I mean, there's other ways to
Yep.
make money on the water sport. But it will definitely impact, you know, now that we have more people, it will impact all the people that are already there. And also the storage will be a big deal.
Right.
Because how you're gonna secure a storage and how you're gonna make sure nobody steal things at night. I know Oyster Point has been very grateful that it's a very secure location. And, you know, I left my paddle on the dock and it was returned back to me because I have a label on. So we're very fortunate, but with more people coming in, that's gonna change.
Right.
So
We're
do
working
you
in South.
envision it like a tent where you store equipment and there's rentals, or more like a structure? I'm just trying to,
Probably a fenced area, because these are water sports, so outdoor is fine, but definitely a fenced.
like a secured
fenced,
area
secure,
where
yeah.
you can leave your equipment.
But it also has to be in and out easily, because people play different time of the day.
Yeah,
It's
we're working in South Sausalito right now on the Marin ship, and there's several, there's scull racing boats and stand-up paddle boards, and they do yoga on surfboards, and the storage and their facilities and their offices are in a mix of garages and repurposed storage containers that are repurposed. They look really nice, and so we've seen this up, and it makes for a much more vibrant kind of opportunity. And yeah, this is a great idea for Oyster Point.
Yeah, it is a great idea, and we'll definitely pursue it. This is the kind of thing that reinforces the idea that the mayor spoke of trying to make Oyster Point more of a destination. There's something to come there for. And you should know, if you don't know, that Oyster Point Marina has been designated as a high opportunity site for the San Francisco Bay Water Trail. And the water trail has been a big plan that's been prepared over the last few years and published. And it basically is designed to serve non-motorized boating activities. And so an aquatic center, kind of like what you're describing, might fit very nicely right there at Oyster Point. We actually have applied for a grant to try to put water trail signage in there, and also some kayak storage area. The harbor master and staff have been working on that. And so that fits very nicely, and it can easily be incorporated into this context. And again, to finally decide how that would happen, I would foresee staff, consultants, and the community and users sitting and saying, let's figure out how this really could work.
So part of your team, does it include a group that is looking into solar and wind as an opportunity down at that marina? Or either, in fact, both marinas. Oyster Point obviously has much more of a wind issue than Oyster Point, but
Right.
you know, both of them seem like they have the opportunity to have done something. And when they remodeled the bathrooms, I know in a lot of the marinas, when they're doing that, they're putting solar
Solar
in
panels
because
on
it's
top.
a way of offsetting the costs.
Right. Yeah, we'll talk with Moffett Nickel. We'll talk to Moffett Nickel about that and see what they have up their sleeve. That's probably something that they're.
Thinking on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's a good.
The capital facilities plan that will be part of the overall business plan is a multi-year thing that will identify projects and priorities and funding sources, and that's just the kind of thing that can fit in there.
While we're mentioning alternative energy here, with the rather rapid increase in electric vehicles, there's no charging facilities for any
Yeah.
at Oyster Point. I don't know what there is at Pillar Point, but there isn't any at Oyster Point.
Okay.
And there are people that come in that use the ferry that are driving a few electric vehicles, and there's no place
Okay.
that anybody can park and charge them.
Okay. Cool. That's something
It's on the list.
It's on the list.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, bringing power. That we work with that in ports and harbor districts around the state where vessel owners want 220 at their slip so they can weld, or so it's part of what we're thinking about. Yeah, fishermen.
Yeah, I didn't-
Not the, yeah,
Fisherman.
Not the basic
Don't include me in that. I did that many years ago, but not now.
where?
Mortal Bay.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, I lived down there many years ago. I'm familiar with the San Luis Obispo area.
Okay.
We still have a house in Los Osos.
I live on 1302 Bayview Heights Drive.
Okay, we're down on Grove.
Okay.
Down right by the bay and the golf course.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we've been working with the fishermen since '06.
Yeah,
So
okay.
probably we should talk afterwards. Anybody else? Anything else?
I have questions, but I wanted to make sure that everybody else got a chance to go first. So, everybody else?
This feels really awkward. I'm messing it up here. So I want to understand things as clearly as I can. So at the last strategic planning meeting in El Granada near Pillar Point Harbor, we were told that there were documents that were being gathered and that the documents were going to be made available to the public via the Harbor District's website. Now, I haven't checked today, but I'm wondering if we could get an update on that. And I could keep going with my questions and then we could come back to that, or you could answer as I go, whatever works.
That's in process. Some have been put on, but others are due to be put on.
So there are documents right now that are posted on the page that you said we would be able to see the documents
There
at?
are some,
There was
yes.
some, yeah. I think there was an update to the website planned and.
Okay. So there are going to be more coming?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then at the last meeting, we had probably about 45 people show up from the public. And I think that was partially due to the fact that there was a push by some people to get email out to let people know about the meeting. I'm noticing that tonight we've got extremely slim turnout, and that concerns me. And I'm hopeful that moving forward, we could find ways to do broader outreach within the community, because I'm sure that there are people throughout the county, and particularly in South San Francisco, that use the facility that probably didn't know about this meeting. So maybe there's a way to partner up with the city or find some creative ways to get the word out so that we have a more successful turnout. And then also the meeting location, it seems like it might be, and maybe there was some conflict, I have no idea what the scheduling issues were, but it seems like it might be easier for people that live at Oyster Point Marina or that use Oyster Point Marina regularly to be present if the meeting is held on that site. So I know in the past we've had events and meetings at the Yacht Club, and they've been very generous, and that's been great. So maybe that would be a better location going forward to try to get folks who actually use the facility to show up. And then you mentioned team members, and this came up at the last meeting. You know, it sounds like there's some really great team members involved with this project. It would be excellent if they showed up for these meetings so that we could hear from them and we could ask them questions about what they're working on, and they could tell us about what they're working on. And I think there's an expectation there that the team members are going to be present for public outreach meetings. And I've certainly seen that done in the past with other types of public outreach for planning efforts. And so my expectation is that team members will be available and able to speak directly with the public, because we might have questions for them, and if they're not here, we don't know what they're working on, and so we're kind of missing out on that part. So just hoping that can happen in the future. And then also there was discussion about forming a stakeholder committee. And I would think it would be relevant to have a stakeholder committee for Oyster Point Marina as well as for Pillar Point Harbor. And there was also discussion about a technical advisory committee, and I would think that that would probably be relevant for Oyster Point as well as Pillar Point. And, you know, that also gets back to there's a lot of kind of complex issues at work here at both locations. And since we're here in South City tonight, we're talking about some of the big development plans and the waterfront redevelopment that the city wants to do, which all sounds really exciting. And I'm sure, everybody's enthusiastic about seeing that happen. But it does raise a lot of questions about how the Harbor District's going to partner with the city to move things forward in a positive direction in the interim. And, it just, boy, that's a whole Pandora's box of questions there. I could really, I've got a lot of questions, but I don't want to get too sidetracked. So it seems like if we had committees that were trying to hammer out some of these issues, we might be making more progress and it might be a more transparent process. So that's just a suggestion. And I was at a committee meeting today for another planning effort that's happening on the coast side, and it was a technical advisory committee, and actually Peter Grinnell was there as well. So, that's sort of how things are done, and I'm hoping that we can do them that way too. And then the other thing I wanted to comment on is that it was brought to my attention by one of the supervisors that they were concerned that this process was moving forward, and their concern hinged on the fact that the general manager is retiring at the end of December of 2014. And with the general manager retiring, that means that there'll be a new general manager. And so it's sort of I guess the concern was that this is an awkward situation where if a new general manager is coming in and things have already moved, far enough along with this process, they're going to be kind of in this, let's just say it's an awkward transition. So the suggestion, I guess, is that that needs to be addressed somehow. And I haven't thought that through because it was only just brought to my attention a couple of days ago. So I'm just bringing it up now because we're here. I love the idea about the aquatic center. So my wheels are turning, and I'm sure that the planners are going to have a lot of fun with that one. It sounds like exactly the way to go, especially given the transitional situation at Oyster Point. It seems like the perfect opportunity. That is something that could actually really get done. And, the idea of using containers for storage and creating a safe place for people's equipment, all of that, just, I am so excited about those ideas. So I really hope that, we hear more about that at the next meeting at Oyster Point. And I'm almost done. The issue of public shuttles, I know that transit issues are something that the city, I'm sure, is way more educated about than I am. And so I just wanted to put it out there that maybe next time there could be a component where the public gets more educated about the future plans for transit from Oyster Point Marina to other transit connections, and also running people to town so that they can do their shopping, and apparently they need to do their laundry too because there isn't a laundry facility. So, one thing about Oyster Point is it's kind of in a service desert, and there isn't a lot of services nearby, and so to have the transit in place would be hugely beneficial, and I think it would help foster more of a sense of community there. So I know that's something that you guys are going to be looking closely at, and I'm really interested in learning a lot more about that. And then I just appreciated hearing about the need for the laundry facility and the issues with the parking, the gravel and the mud and the parking lot, and the transit concerns, because I've never heard any of those issues before. They've never been brought up at any Harbor District meetings that I've been at, so that was news for me. So I learned something tonight. And then I also really appreciated the electric vehicle charging station idea, because that could be useful at both locations, and especially with the ferry terminal and the need to improve transit. That just seems like a really interesting idea. So thank you. Thank you.
I'm wondering, are we going to give all the commissioners a chance to give a speech?
They're all invited. We invited them all. We'll see what happens. it's a long, it's going to come, June 2015 is going to come fast, but we've got some interesting stuff to work with. So if anyone's got any other questions, comments? Thank you for taking the time tonight. We know that everybody's busy, could be at home lying on the couch doing a crossword puzzle or something equally enjoyable. But thank you. Hopefully everybody signed in, and we'll keep in contact. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.